Welcome back to Beyond the Buzzer. I'm so excited for today's guest. His track record on and off the basketball court is comprehensive. As a basketball player, his experience includes a Division I experience in the US, a professional experience in Greece, Spain, and the UK, as well as some international experience with the British national team. Off the court, he is rapidly becoming one of the UK's top creators, but knowing him, he's got his sights set on the globe. Before we tell you who it is, Sam, tell them what they got to do.
Make sure you follow us on Beyond the Buzzer, Pod 13, and all the podcast applications. Let's get it.
Let's go.
Let's go, baby.
Good to see you, Jess.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man. We're excited to have you. I'm excited to introduce you to Sam as well, one of my brothers here in Jordan.
Welcome, baby. Heard so much about you. I'm very excited for this.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So let's set some context. Jesse and I met for the first time when I was 11, he was 12, and we were playing for the London local team. And I was definitely better than him back then. But even from a young age,
Talking smack already.
Always. Even from a young age, I remember Jesse was already doing the paper route before school and building his own computers. So Jesse, why don't you walk us through how you had that work ethic from so young, what that translated into as you became one of the rising prospects in the UK, and how that's led you to be where you are today?
Wow. I'll try and answer that question, in as concisely as I can. I mean, when I was younger, it was more so, it's just survival. I wanted certain things. I wanted to get the latest games and stuff like that. But it's it's expensive. So, from earlier, I got, the paper round job, delivering newspapers, every morning. But really, it built a lot of discipline in me. I had a lot of discipline, from playing basketball. But the paper round was different level. Like, to this day, I think about it often. It's not easy, being 14, 15 and waking up every morning. Your friends are playing Call of Duty on a Friday night. And I'm going to sleep early at like 10 o'clock because I got to be up at 5:50 to get out there in the cold. But really, I owe a lot to that job. And carrying that into basketball and those things bleeding into each other is kind of just helped me learn a lot of lessons on the way. And even in my newfound career, I've used those lessons I've learned.
So let's start at the beginning in terms of basketball, right? So I remember when we first met, I think you'd played a lot of like street ball, but it was the first time you played some organized basketball. We found him again. We met in the London team, but then Jesse started playing for our team, the London Warriors at that time, Westminster Warriors. So talk about how you developed over time, growing into your body, being so tall at a young age, and then I actually have a story of when I remember the first time I watched the game. I mean, I was playing with you, but I was watching from the bench at the end of the game, and I remember thinking, oh, this is the first time I realized this guy's going places. But before we get there, I want to hear in your own words when you realized, like, oh, I could take this thing pretty seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I started out before I played organized basketball, meeting you and stuff. I was just watching And One mixtape, on YouTube and stuff like that, and I was just copying those moves and going out, into the school playgrounds and trying to do those moves on kids. And then I obviously met you, through the Westminster Warriors. And just getting into that training, it was tough at first because I do remember not necessarily being able to move so efficiently. I felt like I've always had like quick feet, like I always did, I don't know, like dance moves and stuff like that. I was always this type of like person. But yeah. And I can't remember how old I must have been, maybe like 15. I got my first dunk. You must have been there in the game. But yeah, I guess that was the time where I was like, oh man, like I'm athletic now,
Yeah, I think one of the things you mentioned is discipline through basketball. And what I've been thinking about recently is we were lucky to have, honestly, really good role models as our coaches, right? Thinking about Jimmy and Che and how much they instilled in us that sort of work ethic. When I think about a lot of the guys we grew up playing with, a lot of them are doing well, right? Modestus is in the freaking UFC. Luke and Tommy out there killing it in LA in the music and production scene, just to name a few, right? So I think also we have to give a bit of respect to the guys that sort of set the tone for us. Because in London, so growing up in the UK in basketball, Manchester was always the better team, right? And we would get to a lot of Final Fours. We finished second one year, third one year, and fourth one year. I actually didn't win anything major until I played pro. But whereas those guys probably developed more on the court team sort of triangle basketball, I mean, our coaches were getting us up at 6 a.m. to run stairs in Kilburn. I know you remember that when you, me, and Jeremy used to run stairs in Kilburn. We used to do preseason at the track. I mean, that shit was wild. So I definitely agree that that's the kind of discipline that fed into, you know, how I think we all are today.
Right. I mean, in London, you guys are not really known for basketball. You know, growing up, I didn't hear too many guys coming out of London. So I would like to ask Jesse, what was the difference you feel like from you coming from London going to the US? Was that a big shock? Was it different style? Did it take you a lot to adjust? Can you just go ahead and give us a little bit of insight on that?
Yeah. Initially, I didn't feel a shock initially. In fact, I was shocked that I was good, you know, because obviously hearing, oh, America, you know, is where it's
impressive. I like that.
Obviously, the top athletes are there, you know, but generally they so much basketball players, and I felt like still within, you know, the school I went to KU. I felt like I was one of the top athletes on the team, you know, and even, you know, when we were playing other teams and stuff, I was like, oh man, like I was well prepared for this situation, and I had a good basketball experience, you know, playing for the national team, and playing for Barking Abbey. You know, we played good competition. We would go to like tournaments in Europe and stuff, and I played a good level of basketball before going there. But I must say that it was different. There was generally better athletes. It was faster paced, but I enjoyed that. That's because that was kind of my style anyway. So I did feel like I fit in quite nicely there.
Yeah, I mean, I heard a quote the other day that adversity is opportunity. And I think when I think about your first year in the US, and if obviously we don't have to go too much in detail if you don't want to, but I'd love to hear what it was like for you recovering from that sickness, right? Because as you said, you went there, and I remember your first year, you telling me like, I actually think I can do this at a high level. And then the sickness you caught was severe physical debilitation, right? I remember, honestly, I don't know if I told you this, but I remember writing you a get well card on the St. John's Wood High Street, not really knowing when or if I was going to see you again because I didn't understand the gravitude of how intense it was. So why don't you walk us through what it was like to sort of go through that and then come back and still be able to play Division I basketball at Lehigh?
Yeah, I mean, I could share that story. I've said it many times, you know. Yeah, so you know, getting there, and I was fit and healthy. Starting at school there, I'd prepared very well. There was coaches, D1 coaches coming to every pickup game that we're playing at the school. I was already getting offers before the season even started. And I really felt like, wow, this is it, you know, like I'm about to do this. And yeah, right before the season started getting cold. I got sick. You know, the school nurses thought it was the flu, kept sending me back to my room. As the week got on, I was just walking around like a zombie. They took me to the hospital, and the doctor there was about to send me back to school. So, yeah, it was probably just the flu. The school nurses were like, "No, trust me, please. Just have a like closer look." That was the last thing I remember. Next thing I know, I was in the ICU getting an operation. I had a rare syndrome called Lemire syndrome, which is basically just a bacterial infection, and I get pneumonia from it and everything. And literally they said that, man, if I did go back to school and one more day, would have been finished. And I felt that. I did feel like I was dying, you know? So yeah, and all my progress that I made, I lost maybe like 30 pounds of weight, you know? I was like, you know, bones. And really, I was lucky to survive that because it was very serious. But I do remember coming out of the hospital, and, you know, right before I left, the doctor saying, man, like, I don't think you could continue playing basketball. I don't think, you know, you could do that. And I remember just hearing that and feeling like, oh, hell no. Do you know how long I've been working to get to this point? I'm finally here, and you're telling me this. And then from that point, I remember it was around Christmas time. I stayed at school. I stayed on campus with a very nice family, and already by then I was getting in the gym, and I had like a portable, I forgot what you call it, but it was like pumping like medicine into me, like, you know, like this machine and stuff like that. And I was still going to the gym. I was just so eager to like recover. and they offered me another year there, to redshirt the rest of that year, and then come back the next year. So I didn't go home. I just thought, you know what? No, like I got this. I'm going to get back on the court, and I don't know how I did it, because I do. It was a painful process. You know, I really forced myself back into playing, but I did it. You know, and I ended up. I got a scholarship from Lehigh University, and
where he played a season with CJ McCollum, who is now an NBA All-Star.
Wow.
And even that decision to go to Lehigh, I remember like getting that offer and feeling like, I don't know if I'm going to make it through the 4 years of college. You know, my body didn't feel like I had the strength. Like, I don't even know how I got the offer. I guess just being tall, being able to shoot. I don't know. But yeah, you know, and over time I started to feel better and better. Went to Lehigh, and yeah, I ended up having a pretty nice college career.
How long was the recovery? Tell me a little bit more about it. Like, what was the recovery all about? Because this is serious, and man, so much power to you, man. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. So yeah, so initially they had like these 2 tubes in my like back, like taken up.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about the rehab. How long did it take you?
Yeah, the rehab.
That's a phenomenal story.
To get my wind back, that didn't take too long, probably maybe 6 months or so. But you know, with that, my like joints were affected, with just the severity of the illness and with the medicine. So that, I would say, really, that took years. And even now, you know, I stopped playing basketball because of a hip injury, which kind of was because of that illness also, kind of, you know, it was related to it. So yeah, I mean, the rehab took long, and in some ways I'm still rehabbing.
Right, man, more power to you, man. Unbelievable. That's crazy. But you're still able to play at a high level, so it's something to be proud of. But real quick, I got a quick question before we get back to it. How good was Aboudi back then? You know what I mean? Because he talked so much smack that he was good back then. I don't really believe it. I want to hear from you. Was he even good back then in London?
I'm gonna pull up the YouTube highlights right now. Don't make me do it.
What highlights?
Bro, I got highlights of me killing in London. Pull up threes, one leg floaters. Get out of here. I'll pull them up on the reels for sure. We're reeling this.
You know, right now he is working on his hops. He's really trying to get his bounce back.
And that's the thing about Buddy. As good as he was, never saw the man dunk.
We're working on
No, but Aboudi was always a great competitor. That's what I respected the most of, or still to this day respect the most of you. You compete. You know, no matter what competition, what level of competition you're playing, you give your all, and you bring your all, and you leave it all out there. You know, but generally, you know, Aboudi, yeah, he could play. He can play. I'll trust him. If we're playing 5-on-5 right now, you know, I'm putting Aboudi on my team, even if the other guard is better than him. I don't know, it's Aboudi.
I would just have him on my team just so he can talk shit to the rest. You know what I mean? Because I'm a shit talker, but I love how he talks smack. So I'll just have him on team just to get entertained.
100%. Boost the morale.
Let's dive into that for a little bit about what you mentioned, only playing 3 years, because I remember Jesse went to KUA, where I ended up going as well,
Right.
and had 1 year of eligibility left in high school.
Okay.
Now, when he got sick, they granted him another one, but what the NCAA didn't do was give him 4 more years of eligibility in college.
Oh.
So he was only able to play 3 years in spite of it being quite a unique situation. So how do you think, and again, obviously you are now in an incredible place, and we'll dive into your career now, but do you think had you had another year to actually physically play in Division I basketball, you would have been able to adapt better and maybe had a different first professional experience? I've always been curious, like, does that rub you the wrong way? Was it frustrating when the NCAA decided on that?
It was very frustrating, you know, having to wait and watch. But, you know, in some ways, was I really ready to play? You know, coming off, you know, yeah, I did play a season of high school basketball and stuff, but man, I felt like I was hobbling around for a lot of the time, you know. When I got to Lehigh, that's when I did feel my body felt right, you know. And yeah, I just used it as an opportunity to observe and learn. I still got to practice. Well, I can't even remember if I actually got to practice with the team. Yeah, I did practice. Yeah, I practiced with
You
the
did.
team.
I
Yeah,
remember you did.
yeah.
'Cause
I
I think me and
practiced
Luke
with the
came and
team. I
saw you
just
one
didn't get
time.
to travel to the games, and play in the games. So yeah, I just use, and even just an opportunity to kind of be a university student. You know, I kind of just saw the plus side of all of that, because it's like if I was just playing basketball that year, I wouldn't have met a lot of different people that, you know, while the rest of the team was out traveling, you know, going to games and stuff. I was like, oh, let me be just a regular student, you know. So that was for me. I saw the plus side of it at the time, and I wasn't really thinking of like, oh man, you know, like this really sucks, even though yeah, it did. And now from this perspective of having, you know, a whole basketball career under my belt, yes, it would have been much better if I was able to play. I would have been, you know, a step ahead. I do feel like, you know, just it's vital experience. Your whole season missing that is a shame. But you know, it happens. Players even get injured for whole season. So I'm fortunate to even have had the basketball experiences I had.
But you still, even in spite of that, you still graduated from Lehigh and got a contract, professional contract in one of the best leagues in the world, right? So the Greek league is a top league.
Were you able to get any NBA workouts prior to going to overseas at least?
So what happened? What happened was I went on a cruise before I knew anything. You know, I did wait around because that was my goal. I wanted to go to the NBA. You know,
Right.
and I worked for that. Didn't hear anything, and my roommate in college, he was going on a cruise, and then his family invited me. I said, oh sure, why not? Nothing's happening here. Why not? I'm on a cruise. My agent calls me. Boston, they want you to come down for a workout. I'm like,
Wow.
oh, no way. I'm in the middle of the Atlantic right now. And I missed out on that opportunity. Um, so yeah.
The reason I'm asking because I got to watch some of your highlights and I'm like, this guy probably had some NBA workouts. And that's the reason why I wanted to ask this question.
6'9", 7'6"
Right.
wingspan, NBA body. Honestly,
7'6" wingspan.
I just threw that out there.
Arms are long, but
no, you get taller every time I see you. Get out of here. Come on.
okay, come on. That's like Wembenyana stat.
Hey, as long as you had fun on that cruise, who cares?
Yeah, no,
I'm trying to make you feel better because I'm sure you wanted those NBA workouts.
Yeah.
But let's go through. So your first contract takes you to Greece, hostile environment, good level league. Walk us through that, and then the decision to go from there to Spain to the UK. Then we'll dive into the fun stuff.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, going to Greece. I initially it was a shock for me, you know, because it was intense. Not just, you know, the fan environment and everything, because you know the fans out there crazy with the fireworks and whatnot. But oh, man, so much. Even just being outside of a school setting, because I was, you know, you're just confined in this school for so long, and now I'm I'm a man, you know, and I could do whatever I want, and I'm in a Greek island, party island, and you know these parties going on every night. They giving me a car, you know, it was crazy. But then on the court, sorry,
The freedom.
yeah, freedom. But then on the court, it was like, man, there were certain things I was like, man, I don't know what's going on. I felt lost for a long period of time. It was
Like what? Like coaching? Like play?
being coached, man. Like it was so tactical compared to playing D1 basketball. So tactical. Like, man, I remember getting a scouting report. You know, 4 or 5 pages. 3 of the pages are the plays, and then you know we'll get that on Monday, and then Tuesday he's like, all right, run the plays that were in the book. I'm like, what? Like, surely we're gonna just, you know, talk about it, and you know, you're gonna talk us through it. He's like, no, you should know it. I gave you the scouting report, you know, you have to know everything on top of your own stuff, you know. So, you know, that alone, and then obviously all the principles and stuff like that, with triple switching. I'm like, triple switch? What the, you know what I mean? I don't know. It seems like everyone else knows, apart from me and the other rookie, you know. So I did feel behind, but definitely like after that experience and the rest of my basketball career, I just felt like, wow, like, you know, I felt prepared for anything, you know. So it was a good starting experience.
Did you have a Greek coach?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they're pretty intense. Greek coaches. They're known to be very
He was
intense.
very intense. Yeah. There was times when you know, there was he had beef with certain teams and stuff like that. We'll win the game and we won't even get to shower. You know, we'll have to. It was like, get your bags, let's go. The fans will be after him. The other coach, you know, it was just crazy thinking back. You know, it was crazy.
Hey, tell me like a crazy story of Greece basketball, because most of my friends that played out there, they always have some crazy story from Greece.
I'm trying to think of a crazy basketball story.
Like either your coach or the opposite coach or your teammate or
I remember.
something.
Okay, I got one. I wouldn't name him, but one of my teammates, they also gave him a car, and one night, for whatever reason, he you know how the cars they gave us were semi-automatic, and he was American. So he didn't understand the kind of concept that, you know, the rollback. And it was on an island. He was parked on a dock. And yeah, and basically, you know, he, you know, switched on the car and it rolled back and two of the tires were hanging off the dock,
oh my
you know,
gosh.
over the water. And he got out and like, you know, it was late at night, you know, near all the clubs and stuff like that. You know, the press, they were getting all their cameras out, taking pictures and stuff like, who are you and stuff like that. Next thing I know, for the rest of the year, I had to drive him everywhere because they took his car. You know, and we became good friends just because of that. You know, every time I had to go to eat, I have to bring him along and everything. So, yeah.
So then you go from Greece to Spain, then back to the UK. So walk us through what it felt like playing professional back where you know, crafted your game, and two, obviously the transition into what you're doing now, how it came about, the first time you realized, yo, like my videos are going viral, right? Because for context, Jesse now has 3 million followers on YouTube, around 700K on Instagram, and his content, honestly, he makes people happy. That's his job. But he was literally one of the shyest people I've ever met in my life. So also seeing that transition.
You're exaggerating.
No. Don't make me bring out Mr. Tickle, Mr. Stretch, all the old names. Come on now.
Okay.
But let's walk through it. So you get back to the UK, you play for Leicester for a couple of years, for I think a year and a half, right? Then COVID hits.
No, it wasn't even a full season I played for Leicester. Before that, though, I retired. You know, I actually, you know, with my hip injury, or that I was kind of struggling through my basketball career, kind of got worse, you know, playing pro. And yeah, I retired after my second year in Spain. I didn't complete that season. I came back to the UK. I was, you know, getting into other things, more in my creative bag, DJing and stuff like that. Leicester hit me up and was like, oh, you know, we'll help you, you know, and see if you could still play. Maybe some rehab will help and stuff like that. I'm thinking, oh, do you know what? I'm not really doing anything else. You know, I'm trying to do some stuff, but nothing's really popping up. Let me do this for some time. At least I'm back home and I could still work out something to do next. So I head up there to Leicester. The rehab goes very well, that I'm able to even start at the beginning of the season, start playing straight away. Obviously, you know, I was taking it easy in practice and stuff like that, but it did help, you know, doing all the strengthening exercises and stuff. And to be honest, before playing in the BBL here, I didn't ever imagine that I'll play back home. You know, it wasn't something growing up. It wasn't something that was glamorous like it might be.
They gave us, bro. They used to give the I remember they made the BBL like the most unsatisfactory destination for professional athletes. British basketball, by the way, I say this in our intro episode, there is such a negative connotation about it. They consistently refuse to invest in it. When Jesse was playing under 17, under 18, not only him, but they had a couple players, Devin Van Oostrum, all these guys that really had a lot of potential to play at a high level. And year after year, they don't invest. So I'm happy you said that, because it's important to point out, like, the BBL is actually a pretty good level, but they just never really made it seem like it was something that players should aspire to play in.
Yeah, it's known for a low-level league till today.
It's crazy. Sorry, Jesse.
Yeah. Now it's changed. Now, you know, there's a lot more money involved. It's the level is a lot better. Even from when I was there at Leicester, it's improved a lot. But yeah, so went to Leicester. You know, played season, had some good games. You know, I did all right. You know, considering I'd coming back from retirement. You know, and yeah, COVID hit in around like February. We had the first lockdown. They shut down basketball. Couldn't practice. No games. Nothing. I'm in the apartment. again, getting into my creative bag. I remember that I was doing all sorts. I was playing Call of Duty, streaming it and stuff. I was thinking, okay, maybe I could be a pro gamer or something, you know? I was getting really good at Warzone.
We
And
played a
then,
couple
you know,
times.
all the while I was making, you know, videos. And I just remember like after I made the first one, which was just by chance, on the side, I did some modeling, and the modeling agency did like a TikTok for like the group. And I said, oh, you know, I'll take charge. I know I have a bit of experience video editing here and there. And after that, making that TikTok, I was like, oh, I need to make my own account. And then I started making videos, and I just remember feeling like, oh, do you know what? This is actually so fun. And I feel like I have like even better ideas, but I don't know how to do them yet. So I just kept going with that. When it came time where like Leicester were like, you know, re-signing players and stuff like that, I didn't get re-signed. And at this point, I had maybe like 100,000 on TikTok, something like that. I had a few viral videos under my belt. But I do remember thinking, like, to be honest, I wasn't gonna re-sign anyway, because I feel like this, I could do this. I feel like I should even have 1 million followers now on TikTok. Do you know what I mean? That's how I felt at the time. So I kind of had nowhere to, I wasn't prepared for that situation, had no money, had nothing. I couldn't record back at home. So fortunately, my friend took me in Germany, lived in Germany for 6 months, helped me get a job as a personal trainer while I was able to use the apartment to keep recording my things. And eventually I won like this big like acting TikTok competition, which was like 10,000 prize. And that was, and by that time, this was after about 5 months or something like that, living in Germany, grinding, where I started the British in America series, which got me to like 1 million followers there. So I was doing well, and I had some brand partnerships. I was starting to make a bit of money, but then really winning that competition really set me in the right way, where I was able to move back to London, get an apartment, get better equipment, invest more into what I was doing. And from there, everything just skyrocketed and kept going better and better.
Man, it's crazy, right? And to see that progression happen so naturally. I remember, you know, like you said, the American and so the British and London in America series, the Bowl War, all this stuff, and then what I want to unpack is that one time I remember I was on the way to the airport, and it was one of the times in London that we didn't get to connect, so we were speaking on the phone, and you were telling me like, you know, I'm actually having a bit of a content block, right? Like I'm now known for doing this and making people laugh and making people happy. But one of the most difficult things here is that not every day am I going to have a good idea. So I want you to also articulate what it's like when, you know, the cost of excellence is high, right? You are now so well known and so popular for good reason. But that means that the expectation is always going to be Jesse, or Chooks, as you're known by your loyal fans, is expected to release content on a regular basis, always looking happy, always, you know, making people laugh. What's that like when, you know, your real life, obviously, you're not going to be happy every day. You're not going to be inspired every day. Walk us through that.
Hmm. It's interesting because it's something that, like, you know, to this day, like I'm living this, you know, I'm living this, and the challenge of that, which is not so different from basketball and being able to perform, you know, in every game, or come to practice and be able to, like, you know, do your job and still try to still enjoy the game, you know, even though now it's a job. And, you know, that creative type of block thing is funny because I've made a lot of different type of content that people know me for. Because before I did that British in America series, I was doing a lot of like tall people problems and different types of people and this stuff that I had a certain bag. And I was even kind of scared to do the British in America stuff, because I was thinking, wow, it's pretty I'm making myself pretty vulnerable, because, like, yeah, some of it is made up, but like really is I lived this, you know. This is kind of like the truth. So but, you know, a lot of the times this is what connects with people the most, and to this day I kind of this is how I go about my creativity. Whereas, like, yeah, I could sit down and brainstorm ideas and stuff, or I could kind of live life and see what affects me, what makes me laugh during the day and stuff like that, and take note of this and share it. And it becomes way more straightforward than trying to either imagine what people are gonna like, or just keep doing beating one idea, just keep doing the same type of thing and just stay in one little pocket. Of course, when I make something that people like, I'll do different variations and play with it a little bit. But really, I like to enjoy what I'm doing as well. Not everything is gonna go great, but this is the best way to deal with the pressure for me, is to keep it fresh for me, or to, if I find it funny, then I'm sure there's going to be some people out of the millions of people that follow me that are going to find it funny. So it's way easier to stay consistent that way.
Do you feel as excited about doing what you do now as you were when you were playing ball?
That's a great question.
Do you think you have the same excitement when you wake up in the morning? Because a lot of athletes struggle for life after the sport. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Um, generally the way I feel was like I played basketball for not to be a basketball player, because I feel more fulfilled in what I'm doing. I felt I love basketball. I love playing basketball. I never felt like I was naturally inclined for it, even though I'm 6'8" and I'm athletic and whatnot. Um, it didn't come naturally to me. I had to work so hard, and I did work hard to for everything, to be a starter, to play, to be able to shoot and stuff. And I look around at other teammates, I'm like, man, I feel like I'm like nearly overdoing it. I'm coming up early in the morning, I'm staying, after practice and stuff, and it seems like it's so much easier for everyone else. And I never quite understood that until I started doing what I'm doing now. And I realized that for me, there's I feel naturally inclined to what I'm doing, that I feel like I still work hard, but naturally I feel more creative, than I did competitive. So I feel actually more joy with what I'm doing, because it's like, it doesn't feel as much effort, to do well at what I'm doing. That's how, yeah.
No, so you said it in your prior answer as well, right? So when you want to be inspired in life, oftentimes the best way to do it is not to sit down and stare at the computer. It's to make sure everything else in your life is going well. Right. You're doing your walks, you're working out, you're happy, and then the inspiration will come naturally. And I think I actually agree, right? I think despite the fact that physically you have the body for a basketball player, you seem much happier and much more in the flow of your life now as you do this, because man, even one time in London, I was on the phone with him and I was wearing a Chuku sweater, and some girl just ran up to me and was like, "Is that a Chuku sweater?" And I just turned the phone. And I'm like, "This is him right here." And I actually thought she was gonna pass out. So like, wow. He has this effect on people. He literally, like, he's like, with my sisters, honestly, they're trolls. They weren't gonna share the podcast, and I told them Jesse's coming on. They started sharing it, right? Oh, wow. He's been a family member for since we were 12, and it's like he has this ability to really connect with people, given the different things you've been through in your life. And for me, that's why I think I see so much more of the Jesse that I've known my entire life in this than the Jesse that I used to call, being like, "Hey man, is basketball kind of depressing you too?" And you being like, "Honestly, yeah, dude, it's not what we thought it would be."
So when he's thinking usually about content, are you thinking what's funny for me, for yourself, or are you thinking of the people? Like, how do you come up with your content usually?
I feel what inspires me, and I go from that. It sometimes it doesn't hit well with the audience, and then maybe I wouldn't make another video like that. But okay. I do sometimes feel like the more inspired I feel to create something, usually the better it is. Not all the time. Sometimes they could be a bit of a disconnect, but generally that's how I feel. And if that does connect with people, and then from there I would knowing that people like that, I would make more of that type of thing. For as long as I still feel inspired, it's like this type of group effect that, oh, they like it, I like it, let's do more, until it's kind of like, okay, it's over now. Let's move on to new ideas.
You know what's funny is, I'm from the older generation. You guys are a lot younger than I am. Growing up, the social media wasn't too big when I was playing ball early in my career. So we were always looked at role models. The word influencers didn't really exist. When social media came on the scene, now you got influencers. And I believe they're two different things. You know what I mean? Like, role model is you're always being watched by somebody that want to be like you. When you're an influencer, I feel like every day you're jumping and hopping on a new bandwagon, whoever believes that, hey, I want you to go ahead and promote my brand. What do you feel the difference? Because you've done both, obviously. You were a basketball player, and I'm sure a lot of kids looked up to you, and you were a role model at one point. Now you're an influencer in a way. So they're two different things. I truly believe. And this is why we have a lot of guys on the social media now that are being followed. They're called influencers, but are they really influence the correct content, the correct, what's the word I'm looking for, the correct culture that we're after? Because I see there's a disconnect between that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think, to each their own, everyone's different. I wouldn't describe myself as an influencer because when I think influencer, I think it's more of a image thing, and you're kind of using your image to influence people, which I guess that's part of my job. But I feel more of a creator. I create content, which could influence people, could influence people to change their perspective and stuff like that. I I could be seen as a role model in, I've had experience of being of a professional athlete, or even to the level of what I do in the creation space that could inspire people. I do pretty much every job involved in creating. I edit, I act in front of the camera, behind the camera, every level of production involved. But yeah, of course, there's some people out there that are, influencers, and it's like, okay, what are you influencing? It might not be the most positive thing, but you have that in this culture of celebrity, I guess. Whereas like we do look at these popular people and are naturally just influenced by it, So I think that in itself is something that I'm mindful of. I try to, with the things I create, I try to make it as though like I should never feel embarrassed for someone to see my stuff. I should never feel like, oh, like I don't want like my mom to see it, or like, a random person on the street. I feel like, oh, let me present myself in like the best way possible. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
That's good. I think so. Interesting. I'm gonna tell a story about the first time I realized you were a role model, and then I'm gonna ask you a question about the dark side of the content creation and the screen time and being on your phone, because I'm even starting to experience that. Right. I text our amazing team at Set the Podcast all the time. Right. But I'm on my phone substantially more now, because it's like, can you guys do this? Can you guys? And it's frustrating. But before I get there, so we were 16 playing against that same old dog Manchester that I spoke about. And at that time, myself, Jesse, a couple other players, and one guy called Jeremy were sort of leading our team. And we actually thought that year we were going to win sort of the UK. I guess it's the equivalent of AAU, right? Okay. It's nowhere near as high level, but that's what it was. And the day before the game, Jeremy, who was also tall, like Jesse, 6'5", also very good, skilled, talented, he got the mumps, I believe, if that's correct, Jesse, and was very sick, and he couldn't show up to the game. So we go up to Manchester, who were notoriously very tall, very well coached, and Jesse was the only player on our team above a certain height. And we fought, but we ended up losing that game by quite a bit, I think around 20. And at the beginning or the middle of the fourth quarter, I got subbed out. And I remember being furious, frustrated, going to the bench, head down, not cheering on my teammates, being just so mad that we had lost, or that we were about to lose. And then I look up, and even though we're 20 down in the fourth quarter, Jesse is blocking every shot, and he's grabbing every rebound, and he's out there talking to his teammates. And I'm seeing him go from, and I was kidding earlier on, he wasn't that shy, but I'm seeing him go from a relatively shy guy to a leader, right in front of my eyes. And I remember the coach after the game telling me, "You think you're a leader, you should see what Jesse just did." And that has stuck with me forever, right? So that's one. I think you've been a role model since you were 16. I've looked up to you since that moment. That was a really instrumental moment in my life. But back to the content creation part, what are the sort of downsides or the hardest parts about being so, involved in media on your phone, in front of screens? What can you sort of give? We always want to articulate the pros and cons of, professions. I'd love to hear candidly, what you think.
That's a great question. I like that.
For me, the main thing for me is, time. I edit. I spend a lot of time editing, and it is a very, sometimes I could feel like I'm losing my mind, you know, like it's like I'm not interacting with people. Even in my videos, I'm interacting most times with myself. I'm talking to myself, you know, and then after that I'm spending all this time like editing the footage and stuff, and this could be it could be isolating at times. And you know, not I don't have so many people to relate to that experience. Most of my friends don't do what I do. You know, most of my good friends that I'll talk to about everything. And of course, yeah, I will say, you know, what I'm going through and stuff. It's different when you could both connect, and like how I could talk to you about basketball. It's like, yeah, you understand, but you really understand because you know you're going through it. So I'll say that kind of like isolating feeling is one of the main cons for me, which I don't think will forever be the type of thing, because man, I'm like what, like 3 years, entering like my 4th year into what I'm doing. So I'm like, man, it's still kind of just the beginning for me, you know. So I think that would eventually not be a con anymore. Yes, my screen time is high, you know, like finding inspiration, stuff like that on my phone. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's work, isn't it? Like there's other people that are staring at graphs, but at the same time, I'm you know, scrolling through feeds, and in the end, I make something usually quite pleasant from it. So I guess yeah.
No, that's a good answer. So you mentioned it. You know, year three done, entering year four. Where do you want to go with this, right? Because the Jesse I know, like 3 million followers on YouTube, that's not enough. Almost 1 million on Instagram, that's not enough. You know, UK US market, that's not enough, right? I know that you have an itch, and I know that you're going to continue to strive. So if you were to say, you know, 5 years from now, you look back and you could paint the ultimate successful picture, obviously with ups and downs along the way. What's next for you? Where do you want to go with this?
If we're talking like 5 years, I'm making movies. You know, like
Wow.
yeah, I like production. I like, yes, I'm making short, you know, content. But really, like I think the concept of being able to entertain, you know, the ideas, the stories, and the emotion, I would want to do that on a bigger level, on a higher stage. So yeah, that's the direction I see myself going.
Wow.
Amazing. I got a question for you. What's your thoughts about today's social media and the new generation, the kids that are looking up social media and they feel like social media brings an easy income where they feel like they're not entitled to maybe get a job, go out there and work, hustle the way we've been taught. You know what I mean? Because I think there's two different outlooks when people look at social media. There's a way where we look at social media, okay, it's something that you can learn from, see what's going on in the world. And there's people that look at it, money. I want to make money off social media. What's your advice for the young generation, for anybody that's trying to make it through the social media? Because me being a business owner, a lot of times that when I interview people, I see these young people like when they look at when you're talking about salaries, they're like, well, I can make that doing social media stuff. I can do that online. So I'm a little bit confused. I know this is your domain, your field. How do you feel about that? I know I went so many directions on this question.
Yeah. How do I feel about it? I think
Yeah.
social media is a tool, you know, just like anything else, and it depends on the person that's using that tool. There's people that could use it for good, there's people that could use it for bad. And yes, there's, you know, these pyramid schemes and all this stuff that people do on social media and stuff. But then there's also some really positive, nice things that people are sharing, you know, and businesses that wouldn't be able to run without, you know, the reach of social media. So I think is whoever's holding the weapon of social media is really, you know, what we're thinking about here.
Do you feel sometimes it's deceiving social media to the people that looking into the phone?
Sorry, repeat that.
Go ahead.
Do you feel like it's deceiving at times? That you think like, oh, this person is happy. Oh, this dude is killing it. This dude is probably living the life. You know how it goes when people looking at people's accounts.
I think that I think that social media just it exacerbates this, because it's like it's the same thing as when you leave the house. When you leave the house, generally you don't leave looking like you're miserable, looking like, or when people ask you, you say, oh, yeah, I'm fine, but are you really fine? You generally, it's like a human behavior to show your best side. And I don't think that changes just because it's, social media. So I think that that is a thing that the majority of people, they're using social media and they're going to show the highlights of their life. They're going to show all the good things, because even they probably don't even want to see that on their profile. They themselves don't want to see, their worst times. And, obviously there's people that don't see it like that and see the value in sharing, everything, including the lows. But I think, I don't knock anyone for that, to be honest. I think that they needs to be there needs to be education in that. It's a new thing, social media. There needs to be education in that the young could know these things, and get the right type of support, that they can know that, okay, look, like, just because you see this guy with 10 Lamborghinis doesn't necessarily mean, that he has 10 Lamborghinis, and like this life is possible for everyone. So I think it just comes with that type of education and knowing.
So Jess, as we start to wrap up the episode, the main reason for this podcast, right? It's highlighting your basketball career, but also talking about what's beyond, what's after. What are some of the lessons that you've picked up along the way as you've dealt with the highs and lows of coming to that decision where, you know what, I got to stop the sporting part. I got to look for something else. What would you be able to pass on to some of the audience members that you think would be helped you along the way?
Well, to be honest, that lockdown for me was pivotal, but mainly because it gave me a chance to just stop and to listen to myself, because I do feel like I've had this feeling to do something else, and to kind of get into this creative space, which has always been in me. And I've always done it, even in any little ways that I did it, I always did it. But the thing also that kind of stopped me with that, being a basketball player, having the identity of a basketball player, and feeling like I couldn't break free from that, because of what other people thought.
That's heavy, by the way. That's something that weighed on me a lot. And for me, it wasn't as much as what other people thought. It was very much like, because other people had put this on me my entire life, especially at ASL, it was always like Aboudi, the basketball player. For me, the idea of doing anything else was so scary. It's like, and then when basketball was taken from me from injuries, it's like, that's my identity, right? It's gone. Like, I actually am nothing without it. And so I think what you said about being able to pause and remove yourself from whatever whatever notions you've made yourself believe, which obviously aren't true. Even if everyone in the world says Jesse's a basketball player, well, if Jesse doesn't believe he's a basketball player, then Jesse's not a basketball player, right? I think that's very powerful, is stopping and understanding that, like, sometimes you need time on your own to really assess what you want to do, and then you just fucking go for it.
It seemed like he's at peace with it, though. Looking at him, like, he is happy, you know what I mean? Because for us athletes, it's usually hard when we walk away from it, especially early on. So looking at you, I mean, you look like you're in a happy place.
Well, I don't feel like I shifted. I don't feel like, oh, all of a sudden, I'm not a basketball player anymore. I play basketball, I play every day nearly. I still play basketball. I don't need to play professional and prove myself or anything. I've played in so many different levels, different leagues, different countries, and basketball's given me so much lessons. It's taught me so much. I've got so much value from being a basketball player that I don't think that I could do what I'm doing now. Aboudi said I was a shy person. Basketball brought my character out. I don't know if I'll be ready to, make videos for, millions of people online if it wasn't for, like, the resilience, the toughness, the preparation that basketball gave me, all the, like, little press interviews that we did after the games, the little media training we have here and there, or even just being in the public eye and your performance being viewed in the public eye and you being okay with that. Basketball gave me so much that is like, oh, well, I could still go to the gym and play pickup. You know, I don't have to be paid to play anymore to feel connected with basketball. So I think that's been important for me too.
It's funny you say that because one of the main points of this podcast is exactly that, right? Is that what you learn playing sports absolutely translates into the real world. So you said it yourself, like I compete. Like I'm actually pretty sick in the head sometimes in how competitive I get. But really, what that has taught me in my career is that you know how like MJ coined he made up stories to get himself motivated. Right. Tom Brady a couple days ago came out and said the same thing. He would just like look at someone on the offensive team and be like, he said what? I found myself, and maybe it's wrong, but I'll find people in the venture capital ecosystem in the Middle East, right, and I'll see their job title. This is as I would go and ask for my employers for promotions. I'll see their job title, and if it's mine, if it's the same as mine, and I know that person is my age or like a little bit older, but not as qualified, I create enemies. And I'm like, right, you're going to compare me to this. And I'll go tell my boss, give me a promotion because I'm not that person. And like, when you think about that, that's sick in the head, right? Like, haram, that guy, he's got nothing to do with me or that girl, whatever. Right. But at the same time, it's a dog eat dog world. And if you want to get places, then you have to somehow find a way to like motivate yourself. And you said it today when we were training in the morning, right, you told the guy, talk shit to Aboudi so he gets fired up. And then he did. And then I busted his ass.
The reason because Aboudi would I think he missed like 5 in a row. And I'm like, yo, can you please talk shit to this dude? Because I need to hit some shots. Sure enough, as soon as the other dudes start talking, Aboudi hits 3 in a row, finishes the game. So you know what I mean?
So you train Aboudi?
I do train Aboudi, yes.
So Sam runs the most. Sam, all the videos you see me posting on Instagram, Sam, after he retired from his professional career, which took him to China, all across the Middle East, he started SD13, which is an academy here in Jordan. And what started off as training players like me and high-level players, he now trains boys and girls from ages like literally 4, 5, 6 up until professional level. So he's got probably one of the most comprehensive basketball academies, I think, in the Middle East, to be honest. I would say so. Yeah.
We got to get you out here, baby. We got to get you out here.
Yeah, I'll get work out. I'll play 1-on-1 against Aboudi and we could see if stream he continues to talk. Yeah, we can live stream it. Put some money on it.
Jesse, last question. One piece of advice, proper in terms, not only for athletes trying to make the jump, but just a life lesson you've picked up along the way. You've had, you've overcome all kinds of adversity. What is one thing that stuck with you that maybe you actually wish you knew at a younger age?
For me, it goes back to just follow your truth. I think that when I think back to playing basketball, a lot of times I felt like, within my shell, and for whatever I was fearing, maybe being subbed out, or what the fans or my teammates are gonna think, that I didn't feel like I was consistently playing and enjoying basketball to the extent that I should have, and I kind of always put that off into the future. And having that experience and reflecting on that, I try not to do that now. When it comes to my ideas and whatnot, I try to enjoy it and, just do what I feel like I want to do, and express myself. And I would say that it really makes what you're doing worthwhile, especially if you care about what you're doing. So
in the words of Chuku, follow your truth. Jesse, appreciate you, man. My brother for life. I love you. It's so good to see you doing well. I know I'll see you in a couple of weeks, but this means a lot to me and Sam as one of the early guests. Thank you so much, dude.
Thank you, man. We appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure, baby. Thank you. Make sure you guys follow us on Beyond the Buzzer, Pod 13, and all the podcast applications. Good work, baby.